So next we have David Hlebsain. Okay, I pronounced it right. Okay. David is an MSW. He's actually local here to Seattle, and we're very happy to have him now involved with the ABC. We're excited that you found us as an adult, and David is working on a really exciting project with the ABC that he wants to share with you today, and it's going to be available after the conference. We'll start with adults, and he can speak to this more, but certainly this is going to be a profound project and intervention, and we talked about how important peer support is. We're happy to have your contribution, so come on up, David.
Hi everyone, it's nice to be here today. My name is David Hlebsain, and like Emily said, this is my first time here at the ABC conference, so I'm glad to be here with all of you today. I'm going to speak a little bit about compassion. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own practice and studying and training and sharing related to that, and as Emily mentioned, I'm going to talk about a compassion-related opportunity to connect with this particular group. But before we do that, I just want to give a little snapshot. Oops. I had some other pictures that maybe got out of order. Oh, okay. Well, I had a couple pictures of my current life. I live here in Seattle. I had a picture of my partner and I racing in a 5K recently, doing some hiking in the Pacific Northwest, traveling. These are all things that bring me joy and bring me life. And I have a background in social work. I've also worked a lot in public policy. And I currently do communications work. So I've been in a lot of different fields. And again, I'm excited to share a little bit more today. Before I kind of go into the logistics of what I wanted to share about, I wanted to give a little bit about my story. So this is me at age 6. This is my kindergarten photo. So I was born with isolated epispadias. And I also had related bladder complications that were connected to it. So I had 3 major surgeries prior to the age of 10. Within the first year of my life, I had a genital reconstruction, and at age 5, I had an artificial urinary sphincter placed, which essentially created an activating pump around the neck of my bladder I could use to release and kind of constrict the bladder for to go to the bathroom. So I, to this day, have my artificial urinary sphincter. I manage mild incontinence. And this is kind of part of who I am and part of my day-to-day life. Now I love being here and seeing all of these parents with small kids learning about their parents' condition and talking about psychosocial support and hearing people share their stories. I told Anna when she spoke today, I was like, that was amazing. You own your story. You know what happened to you. You can speak to it. Was it easy? No, but you can tell it and it's yours. And so I think that's really powerful. And my experience when I was growing up as a child was that all of my care was focused solely on my physical condition. I grew up in a rural area in a time and place where there just was not a lot of support around sort of the emotional and psychosocial side of this aspect of things. And so my parents got me exceptional care. And they sort of did their best to kind of fix it. But the challenge was that I never had the chance to be able to talk about it, to be able to express my feelings, to be able to share what that experience was like for me, and I didn't know how. It wasn't modeled to me. And so what happened was that I really struggled internally, even though that wasn't always apparent on the outside. My coping mechanism as a kid was kind of overperformance and overachievement, which externally looks really great. The kid's doing a great job, but no one ever asked, why is David working so hard all the time? And there was never kind of the recognition that he's working so hard because he doesn't feel good enough at the core, right? And so you don't want that to be your driving motivation in life. And so, as I was coping, I really had an inability to speak about my condition. I didn't understand what had happened to me. I couldn't describe it, in common words. As I got older, I felt like I had a disconnect from a healthy sexual development. And I really, like I said before, I really focused on achievement and kind of excelling as a coping mechanism. And so this kind of continued for a long time into my adulthood. It wasn't until I was in my mid to late 20s that I went through a major life event that had nothing to do with epispadias, but was a really painful experience for me. And I had a really big rupture. And what happened was all of this stuff I had been suppressing my whole life just came to the surface. And I recognized that I needed to deal with this part of myself, and I needed to understand what had happened to me, process my emotions, and figure out how to integrate it more fully into who I was. And when I think back on that time, I think of three main things that really were critical to that. Because I didn't get the psychosocial support I needed as a kid, finding a good mental health therapist to work with was really important to me. It was really important for me to make connections with people who had a similar experience of having similar conditions like myself. And another really important part for me was learning to extend compassion, particularly self-compassion, to myself. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. I really felt like I had a block, and I was rejecting kind of a lot of my personal experiences, and I was becoming more and more aware of that. So I was seeking out a lot of workshops in my community to kind of explore topics of compassion through the medium of mindfulness, through compassion cultivation, and I really began to seek this out and integrate this into my personal life. It wasn't always easy, but it was something that I felt like needed to be part of the solution for me. And so I really, from 2015 to 2016, I just really worked on developing this own personal practice daily of trying to do some internal mindfulness-based compassion work for myself. And I became really passionate about that part of the work. And it got to a point in 2021 where I felt like I wanted to try to share what I had learned and experienced with other people. I had connected with a group called the Hlebsain and Epispadias Association, and I was going to some of their conferences and involved with peers in that particular way. So some of my motivations for exploring more about compassion, like I shared, were just my personal understanding of feelings of isolation, shame, and inadequacy that came with not having addressed these issues at a young age. Just really feeling a personal sense of blocked access to self-compassion for myself. Starting to recognize that the suffering we experience is exponentially more if we resist it rather than learn to embrace it. And that was a really key piece of learning for me. And I recognized that I'm pushing away things that were hard my whole life instead of learning to hold and move through them in a healthy way. And as I worked with other people in the Hlebsain and Epispadias Association, I realized that a lot of people had similar feelings. This wasn't just me. And that was really helpful for me as I continued to develop my own personal practice around compassion and self-compassion. I really had a desire to share that with others. So during 2021, I spent a year going through a certificate program, getting certified in an applied compassion training protocol. And I focused the entire year around developing a compassion cultivation workshop series for adults with Hlebsain and Epispadias. In addition to all of the content from the one-year training program, I drew on my own social work training and experience, my own personal lived experience, and a number of speakers have talked about trauma as well, and I did a lot of additional workshops around trauma-informed mindfulness as well. And what I helped create was a compassion cultivation workshop series that I began delivering in 2022 to adults with Hlebsain and Epispadias. And I want to share a little bit about just what the workshop is, what it has been so far, and what I hope it can continue to be. So the workshops were offered over the course of a month-long period. They were offered 2.5 hours online each week with a small cohort to create some level of intimacy. And I focus specifically on adults with hypospadias and epispadias. And we focused on the topics of developing mindfulness, experiencing compassion, connecting with our sense of self-compassion, and expanding compassion outward to others beyond us. And the workshops included a little bit of content delivery, some structured opportunities for sharing and compassionate listening. A really central component was guided and facilitated practices around mindfulness and compassion to be able to practice together, some mind-body experiences, and then to be able to provide practice recordings to the group so that they could continue to engage with them between the week-long sessions. And the core of the workshops was really focused around these 4 ideas, essentially that compassion can be a response to the suffering that we all experience, and the suffering that we can begin to recognize and hold when we're mindful of it and when we don't push it away. And also that compassion is an innate resource. Now, when I'm talking with some of you, you may feel like compassion is something that feels very alive for me. Other people may feel like that's not something that feels as inherent to me. But the workshop really starts with the belief that it is something that on some level we all have access to, and that we can intentionally cultivate to develop and deepen our ability to connect with it, so that we can consciously respond to life stressors that all of us, regardless of whatever conditions we have or don't have, will inevitably face. And so this is really focused on being able to consciously react to challenges, as opposed to what often all of us do as humans is unconsciously react and let fear or shame or disappointment kind of color our reactions to situations. So for me, this was a really healing and powerful experience, and it was something that for me just felt like I wanted to share with people, because I felt like I understood what they were going through. And I don't think a workshop like this is a panacea. I don't think it's here to solve everyone's problems, but what it can offer is planting some seeds, offering some tools that can be available for people to draw on when they're having difficulty. From the initial capstone project, I just have this is from a very small group of people, but folks just ranked, from a scale of 1 to 7, a number of statements before doing the workshops and after. So with 4 being kind of a neutral statement, it was really great to see people, starting out saying neutrally that I see compassion as a resource that's available to me when dealing with difficulty. And then at the end, just after 4 weeks of practice, having that land somewhere between agree and strongly agree. So it was really powerful to see the way that people's reactions to some of these different statements changed with a regular daily practice. These are just some of the quotes that people shared with me following the initial workshops. And I wanted to share beyond this that I've been talking with Pam and Emily about the opportunity to offer a similar workshop for the ABC, I don't know if it's ABC, I've not been here long enough yet, community. And this is something that I'm interested in offering, to this community. We have picked some dates in October, and so there'll be information coming out in the coming weeks. We didn't want to send it out at the same time as the conference to confuse people about multiple events going on. But I think this is something where it will be available for adults, something that is free of charge, offered online, and that hopefully is a chance for people to be able to come together and have this experience if it's something that is appealing to them. I will say that a workshop like this isn't just about people with epispadias. This is content that's really helpful for humans. And why I think it's important to have it available for groups like I have with the conditions that I had earlier, or for offering it for people with bladder extrophy, is that there is an opportunity to meet with people who have a shared understanding. How often have all of you with extrophy been in a group where you wanted to share something, but you're like, gosh, do I want to have to explain what this is to people? Do I want to have to deal with people's reactions? This is a place where if you want to talk about extrophy, you have a shared understanding in the group, But it also isn't all about extrophy. It's also just how you're relating to the daily stressors of your life, and by able to practice them, they can grow and build to help you in all sorts of aspects of life. So I think we really want to focus on just kind of a gentle approach, how we can begin to build some skills. And we've talked about potentially expanding this if it's popular or interesting to people, to caregivers, who may also deal with their own stressors, caregivers or parents or others. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot, and probably talked too long as well. I'll end with just a quote that I think has summed up with what a lot of people have shared today from Rumi. The wound is the place where the light enters you.